Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down one of the most powerful and honestly revolutionary ideas in all of modern AI, the attention mechanism. This is the secret sauce, the thing that took AI from being kind of clunky to incredibly conversational.
But to really get why this is so important, we have to start with a problem. See, early AI, especially when it came to language, had a really bad memory. Just imagine trying to read a super long, complex book, but by the time you get to the end of a sentence, you've totally forgotten how it started. Well, that was the everyday struggle for these models.
So that brings us right to our first section. We're going to look at the world before this massive breakthrough, a world filled with AI that just had a terrible memory.
Think about it. When you or I read something, our brains automatically latch on to the important words to build context, right? But older AI models, stuff like recurrent neural networks or RNNs, they just couldn't do that. They were built to read one word at a time. And because of that, every single word got treated with pretty much the same importance. So all the key details from the beginning of a long sentence, they just got washed out by the end. The AI literally couldn't tell what was important and what was just fluff.
This whole problem created what researchers called the information bottleneck. The model would try to squeeze the entire meaning of, say, a huge paragraph into this one tiny fixed-size piece of memory. And as you can probably guess, crucial details, context, all that nuance, it just got lost. It was a huge wall, a fundamental barrier to building smarter AI.
So, how in the world did we get around this? Well, the solution was surprisingly elegant, and it all started with a very simple and very human idea.
And here it is, the big light bulb moment. The crucial insight was to stop forcing the model to remember everything equally. Instead, what if you could just teach it to pay attention, to actively decide for itself which parts of the information were the most relevant for whatever it was trying to do? This is the perfect way to think about it. The attention mechanism is basically a dynamic, super intelligent highlighter. It's not just randomly marking up a page, it's highlighting very specific bits of info based on the exact question it's trying to answer in that moment.
Okay, so let's get into the weeds a little bit. How does this digital highlighter actually work? Well, it turns out to be a surprisingly simple three-step recipe.
So first, the model comes up with a question. In AI terms, that's a query. It's basically asking, what do I need to figure out right now? Then it looks at all the information it has. Let's call those the clues or keys. And finally, it compares its question to all the clues to figure out which pieces of information, the values, are the most useful answers. It's a search process, really.
Let's make this real with a classic example. Look at this sentence. How does an AI have any idea what the word "it" is talking about? Is it the animal or is it the street? Now, for us, it's totally obvious, right? But for an AI, that kind of ambiguity is a huge, huge hurdle.
And this is where a really powerful technique called self-attention comes into play. The model uses that same query, key, and value recipe, but it does it to figure out the relationships between words inside its own sentence. Every single word is basically asking every other word, hey, how relevant are you to me? It lets the sense look at itself to understand its own meaning. Kind of cool, right?
Now this is what's so cool. You can actually see the result of that process. When the model is looking at the word it generates these attention scores for all the other words. And look at that. Animal gets a massive 90% score, while street gets practically nothing. The model has correctly highlighted the most relevant word. Puzzle solved.
Now, this idea of self-attention, which sounds pretty simple, didn't just solve one little problem. Oh no, it completely changed the game. It kicked off an absolute revolution in AI.
Back in 2017, some researchers at Google published a paper with a title that was about as bold as you can get. Attention is all you need. And they were right. They introduced a brand new model architecture, the transformer, which basically threw out all the old, slow methods and was built almost entirely around this one concept. And here's the deal. This new transformer architecture gave us two huge advantages. First, unlike those old models that had to read word by word by word, transformers could look at the entire sentence all at once. This made them way, way faster to train. And second, because they could see everything at the same time, they were so much better at connecting the dots and understanding the context between words, even if those words were at opposite ends of a really long document.
This new power led to a massive leap in things like machine translation. All of a sudden, services like Google Translate went from being kinda clunky and sometimes hilarious to being remarkably fluent. And it's because the model could finally understand the full context of a sentence before it even tried to translate it.
It's also the engine behind all the advanced chatbots we talk to these days. This is the exact technology that lets an AI remember what you asked it 5 minutes ago and actually carry on a coherent conversation.
And what's wild is that it wasn't just for text. The same idea was applied to computer vision. It allows a model to focus on the important parts of an image, first the cat, then the window it's sitting in, then the rug on the floor, to create these incredibly detailed and accurate descriptions of what it's seeing.
All right, let's bring this all home in our final section and really look at why this one elegant idea had such a massive, world-changing impact.
So to sum it all up, attention gave AI the superpower to handle long, complex information without getting lost. It also made the models way less of a black box, because now we can actually peek inside and look at the attention scores to see what the AI is focusing on. And all of that just leads to a huge improvement in performance on almost any complex task.
But of course, there's no free lunch. This incredible ability to calculate the relationship between every single piece of data, well, it comes at a cost. It takes an enormous amount of computational horsepower and memory, and that's exactly why these huge models are so expensive to train and run.
Ultimately, though, this is the single most important thing to take away. For decades, we tried to build AI with a better memory, but the real breakthrough came when we just stopped trying to make it remember everything, and instead we taught it the art of focus.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've given our machines this incredible new ability. So the big question now, as this technology just keeps getting better, is where should we point its powerful attention next?